seen a lot of guitars in my life. I seen played a lot of guitars, seen a lot of guitars. I'm old enough to have played some of the most renowned and revered amplifiers known to the guitar world and music world. They're all gone now, a lot of them. But you know, the I I am the modern Hendrixian spaceman because I transcended all those generations. Your daddy's music, your grandfather's music, your kid's music, and probably future music. Because I didn't. I'm glad to be that motherfucker, but I did not have a life really, not much of one. It was good that I had solid in-house pussy that was dedicated, and it allowed me to. I, I remember being with my high school girlfriend, and she was so Valerie Bertinelli about it. She's like, she used to tell me that all the time, every day. It's either me or that fucking guitar, Aaron. That's enough. I'm not a guitar, Aaron. You can't just pick me up and play me when you want to. That's what she used to say to me all the time. Even um, a lot of my girlfriends used to say that to me. In fact, a lot of them. I'm not basically in so many words. You know, it's the guitar or it's me. You know, I'm not your fucking drum machine. I'm not your fucking computer program. I'm not your. But I'm talking about the days of 4-track tape, and you know, like everybody does, they still do that. It's just the way it is. Fucking, I seen a lot of guitars come and go. I seen a lot of shit like that. Yeah, I love the instrument. I come back when I started. It was the the only effects you were getting were spring reverb, and that's it. Maybe if you were a rich man, you could buy an echo pedal or some shit. But the best way, and then you know, I lived through the digital age where everything was slowly analog, and then it became analog digital hybrid, and then I lived through that age, and then I lived into the full conversion of the Y2K into just digital, then from digital into Wi-Fi, digital into Bluetooth age, digital into your computer age, the ampless age, which is like now we're living in. All you need is a power amplifier in your computer, but I wouldn't do it that way. I would do it that way for records, but not live. It's too Revenge of the Nerds for me. I would come in, shut the fuck up. I would like to play at a full excursion of sound, a a sonic barrage, blitz, salvo, assault, strike, strafing, air raid of panic-inducing volume. I don't know what my parents were thinking though, because it was like they would just. I came from a real dysfunctional home, like most people do, I guess, but it was different in my day. It was the '90s, and my parents would allow me to play with my band at unusual volume excursions of sound in extreme amplitude. I mean, I had a Fender when I was a kid. I had a Fender M80 half stack, and nobody I knew ever had a whole stack. I've never met anybody with a whole stack. It's all about the half stack. That's the slanted cabinet and the 80-watt head. 80 watts is blistering, extremely fucking loud. Transistorized distortion, 4x12 cabinet with paper cones pushing basically 100 fucking watts. When you play guitar, you're playing at 30, 50 watts. Maybe I doubt anyone out there is playing at 100 watts except for me. Plus, transistorized Fender M80 was louder than a Marshall's half stack. And they're just called stacks because that's what they are. It's 4x12. That's a lot of air coverage. That's a lot of speaker pushing power. Blistering loud, mid range K. Piercing fucking loud. Panic inducing. Enough to change your vibratory state. And we would do this in our house. And then the bass player, like Rich, who was part time, and he'd tell you so. He's like, you can use all my gear, but I can't do this full time. You know, I can't. Because that's the way Rich is. He's a weird dude. And we would come, and then Nick would fill in. And all I remember, when I think back, what I remember most is when it's not Ted, Nick, Tim, and I in my bedroom playing through. And you know, Nick would come in and take up Rich's rig, RP's rig. He'd put on a 78p bass and begin to wail. And he's pushing through an 18-inch acoustic bass cabinet from 70. 77, 78. I don't remember what it was back then, with an onboard volume attenuator clipper, which is basically just like, limiting when it kicks in, and a graphic, a built-in graphic EQ, and it just used to be so. It would do structural damage to my house with my parents sitting downstairs watching Jack Arnicky on the news, or Ed Daig on the news, or Dick Wood on the news, or listening to the news about Schenectady or whatever, and they would turn up the TV, the Montgomery Ward TV downstairs at top volume, as we did structural damage from a Ludwig kit, a 24-inch kick drum, 20, 18-inch head tom, 20-inch head tom, 24-inch floor tom. Extreme. The roof used to cave in, the plaster would break away, and it would piss my father off, but he understood at the same time. He was so conflicted. And he's like, maybe you guys should just go in the basement. I know it sucks down there. You can use my PA and shit, but he just let it go. We're talking extreme fits, extreme demonstrations of fucking volume. And the 5-string basses that come through, I mean, if you got the bottom B on it is what I used to do with them shits. I'd immediately take that off and saddle it. I'd go down to Hermes and buy string saddles for it that would fit EADGB, and I'd put the B on. I'd put the B in normal position after you know, after the G, and that's what I would do, because I've never seen anybody play the bottom B sufficiently, and to be and it's too tricky because most guitar players are normal to that E string being there. I don't care how you play, you'll always fuck that up. Nobody knows scales that well except for me, where they could traverse and drop 2 octaves down below and pull it off and then pop back to the E. It's just better off to keep the guitar the way it is and do it like the Remains did it. They were the first to have that 5-string action like that. And that's how I'd blow it out. But motherfuckers like Rich were the magic men behind it all that made shit happen. Like they chose to take a backseat role when they could have, and they because that reminds me of him too. They could have done that. They come through. It's like, whoa, oh, Rich came over. It's Friday night. He's got some acid. He wants to give it to us. Oh my God. Oh, we need to put this record out. It's only right. Well, Rich is gonna put it out. It's like, okay, and then you tell people Rich is putting it out. As project after project fails, and then eventually September comes, and it was well after 9/11, I think, but no, it was around that time, I think. And what do you know? The record comes out. People like Rich were awesome because they didn't understand. He spent like 3 years from the time he was 11 through 13 years old playing bass, and he was somewhat of. I thought he was a genius back then. I thought he was a musical genius because he did not tune up. He did not ever learn how to tune up his guitar. He only learned finger positions, and yeah, and he would play with a low B, and he'd be up there playing Primus sounding shit. And then if you had to play a song, he would know the positioning, but then he'd have to tune the string up and find the tuning. And I remember just telling him, "No, it's just E, I showed him how to tune. This is what E sounds like. You reference it with a keyboard, you reference it with, you know." And then I made tapes with an E note ringing out, and he learned how to do that. But yeah, and he always had enchanted tools that he would sell the band. He would sell me, and he sold Ted an effects unit once that we used for like 5 years. Ted adored it. This Yamaha effects. Sold me, let us use his. We were singing through his bass amps as a PA because they were so ginormous. But yeah, and he would every time he would try to write a song or come up with an idea, he'd ask me in a secondhand way to do it. He's like, somebody should write a song called Hail Bob. And it's like one of the greatest songs I ever wrote guitar wise. It's total guitar swank. It rocks. Then I wrote that when Angels Die. He came up with, and we should write this, and somebody should do it like that. And so I went and did it. Magic shit happens all the time, just the way he is. And he always is right out of arm's reach. You need him. You need him to move. And getting him to move in was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was the greatest thing I ever done, and it was one of the best times of my life, and I can't forget it. It was just it was like my college days, living with Rich, and I remember I was so proud of myself. It was impossible to get him out of the security of his own home with his parents because he had a nice home life. I wouldn't want to leave either. It was fucking beautiful, and he was a dope dealer, and that's I just remember that he had more pot than I've ever seen in my life. Pillows of marijuana at his age. Pillows of this is back in the 90s. He's just a boy. He's a baby. He's only like 17, 18 years old. I'm like, you're going to get caught. And there was a lot of pressure on him to deal that shit. I just never saw so much pot in my fucking life. Ever. When I think of the most pot I've ever seen, I think of him. And I think of him growing it in my house while we stole electricity from the place next door. And that was the most pot I've ever seen. Just two mason jars filled with this Swedish bud that he was growing, that he got from Sweden. Because at the time, that's where all the seed stocks were coming from. You had to order the seeds. And the most acid I've ever seen is Rich back in the day. The most acid I've ever seen anyone take, and the most, well, besides Steve Nadeau, them guys, that was it. Everyone used to get to the point where they could eat a sheet of acid or a half sheet or whatever because of their tolerance. We were the last generation to trip like that, like the hippies. We tripped like Owlsley. We tripped like Timothy Leary. We tripped like the Grateful Dead Dancing Bear. We was tripping. We were, and that was the music at the time, was alternative music, you know, with blistering loud feet, just blistering loud fucking music. And then when my band wasn't playing, I'd be in the house playing drums 24/7 or playing keyboards at top volume. And the keyboard guy is the next guy to bring into the band. He's the magic man Merlin that's in the corner. It's like, what can you do with this? And he starts layering pads and synths and layers and sounds. You're like, yes. And he's running a beat, and then your drummer is playing to his beat mapped beat that he's holding down on the keyboard. The keyboard player's a magic man. The great thing about a good keyboard player is he probably doesn't even know how to play fucking keyboards. He's just good at assaulting people like Terminator X on that keyboard player. That's the first thing I'm going to do when I get my band back together. But I'm going to make him cool. I'm going to make him Ray Manzarek-ish, but fucking this piece of shit will not stop chanting shut up. But yeah, he'll be cool. We'll be having Mellotron samples, Vox Continental samples, Fender piano bass, Wurlitzer samples going, Whirlies, straight up DX7 shit. Hell yeah. I want to get a little keyboard bitch and just tell her what to do. Just some little keyboard bitch. I could just remember that little bitch who used to sing and play keyboards in her room on YouTube. Oh, that British bitch! I was beating so many loads. I beat out to that bitch. That little bitch in her room, little British bitch dancing around with the keyboard. Oh my god, doing songs and shit. Oh my god, just pounding dick. I want her in the band. Yeah. She's all dancing by herself and dancing to herself. I fucking love this. I'm in England. I'm playing keyboards. That hot little bitch. Put my dick in that all day.